I don't know.
Yeah, we're cool.
Hi everyone, we're in
Get out of
Birmingham,
here.
Alabama right now. This is my new friend. And so he's gonna go first and talk a little bit, then I'll talk a little bit. So.
Yeah, we're at Kelly Ingram Park. It's a civil rights park where they had all the protests down in Birmingham back in the 60s and the 70s. Anyway, Challice came down here to visit, and she's on her way over to Houston, so maybe those in Houston can catch her up there. But she wanted me to take a couple of minutes and just mention about sovereignty of the individual, which we discussed this morning. It's also what LaVoy stood up for, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you pointed out Martin Luther King was doing the same thing. While they were talking about civil rights, he was actually, Martin Luther King, standing up for the natural and unalienable rights of not only the American people, but of all people. And there are a lot of more Americans standing up for the natural and unalienable rights as the sovereign individuals they are. And the reason I say that, and we're not talking about sovereign citizen and all this stuff that the government spews out to you, because you cannot, as a lot of people are learning, you cannot be a sovereign and a citizen. But outside of that, only in America, and this is why America is so important and different from all other countries. The United States of America is the only country where it is recognized by law and principles that the country is founded on, that is the individual who is the sovereign. It's not the city, state, national government. Though they have sovereignty, they only have it to the extent that you have relinquished a portion of your rights and liberties to the government. But what the Declaration of Independence said, when the government becomes so despotic, it no longer protects your liberties, then it is not only your right, but it is your duty to throw off that government in order to establish new securities for your liberties and your rights. As far as the law goes, the law states that it is the individual who is the sovereign, and always has been. And if you look it up, that's the case in Colorado versus ALD, I believe it is. In the second part, these are only two things you need to learn and remember for the core of what you believe, or the way you live. And that is, the rights of the many are no more than the combined rights of the one. So for example, I was in a different state years ago, and they had an amendment for a tax. Well, the tax passed by 51% to 49%. I went before their city council and used that as an example. I said, you all just got through saying a pledge of allegiance to the flag in a republic, and that's what you've taken your oath to. But you just passed a law where by 51% over 49% as a democracy. I said, in your claimed unlawful democracy, the 51% who voted for the tax owe the tax. Well, no, all people have to pay the tax, because in a democracy, the majority rule the minority. In our republic, as established, all the people cannot come against you. So rightfully in a republic, the 51% that voted for that tax owe the tax, and the 49% that voted against it do not and are not liable for it. Those are the only two things you need to read and understand dealing with the sovereignty of the individual. Until you do, you don't have any rights. So anyway, Challice has to step off just a moment. We cannot read any of your posts right now because I'm too far away. And I want to give Challice a chance to stand up and talk about how things are going with her and family struggles, and are you securing your rights and those are liberties for all of us. And thank you for all you're doing. Love you, buddy.
So I've really enjoyed speaking with him just on the individual. One thing my dad said was that the republic, a constitutional republic, protects the individual from majority rule. And as individuals, we are so important, and it's important to realize that we're not supposed to conform to whatever society tells us to do. It's hard to stand because right now we're on the few side. Growing up, I was brainwashed that we were a democracy, to think, like, all of my thinking was, oh, we all do this by majority rule and we all just accept what that is. And that's part of the school education system. Thankfully, I had a wonderful dad that taught me otherwise. Otherwise, I would still think that way. It's hard even now for me to reprogram my brain to remember that it's the individual, not the majority rule. And so I think as Americans we need to learn to stand up for the individual's rights. And it's kind of cool that we get to do this in a civil park memorial.
Yeah, head of the civil rights here in the South.
I mean, it's a perfect place. And I wanted you to tell some of the cool things you do with, like, so he doesn't have a state license. Like, how cool is that? But he has. Explain it. And it's
well, no,
so cool.
I haven't, you know, rightfully or wrongly, but it's no wrong by, you know, the people have a right to self-govern as the individuals they are. And what I have established is a sovereign American ID, and a lot of people are doing different IDs, but we really should be on the same page. But that's something you cannot get from the state, and the state will never give you something, because what the law states is the state has authority over everything which it creates or is introduced by its permission. And I ask you, did the state create you, or did you ask for permission to exist? When you get a driver's license and other state documents, you're asking for permission from the state to do something that in most cases you have a natural and unalienable right to do already. And so I decided years ago, finding out that so much was wrong with this government, that I exercised my lawful duty as an American to throw off the government, not overthrow anything, but to throw off the government in order to once again secure the liberties not only for myself, but for my family, and to establish a precedence for other people. And this is the same thing, I think, basically that Lavoie was doing.
Yeah.
Except I doubt that, I don't know that he did or did not have his own identification, but the American people should come together, and you're not required to go to a government or a third party to identify yourself. So we, the people, have the unalienable right to do that for ourselves and force the government to accept that as the people, the natural and unalienable people that we are. Do you agree?
Yeah, like, so how I think about it is, you know, you have some of your God rights are your life, liberty, and your right to own property. And when the government's asking for permits, not only on our land, our vehicles, but also for our persons, you know that that's stepping over the line. I mean, why is it we have to carry identification? I mean, if you look at Nazi Germany, they had to have identification so that they weren't thrown in jail. And how many times, if you're driving without a driver's license, can you be thrown in jail for what? Not having identification? That
has nothing to do with your ability to drive.
No.
You know, I agree that you need to have some say, hey, he took a class, knows how to drive, but now, you know, the states are locking everything into your driver's license. It's your DNA, it's your rights. Well, you don't have rights unless the state gives it to you anymore. So their privileges and immunities is what the law calls it. But it's time for and take example Colorado. Colorado years ago came up with the rain tax. Since when can you be taxed because it rained on your roof? And they base it on the square footage of your roof. You know, and then out in your neck of the woods, you know, where they're taking over the ranches and said, you do not have the permission or authority to govern your own property, or you cannot grow tomatoes or broccoli, you know, in your own yard or on your own farm without the consent of the government. That is not living your liberty. That is living basically as what they call a statutory person who is volunteered to be a subject of the state. Same thing Lavoie was talking about.
Yeah, and all these things have come like one little bit at a time. And it's because we as Americans have been slothful and not, you know, actually watching what our government is doing, that slowly are adding it. Like when the Social Security, when you got, you know, your number that you're identified by, when that was implemented, it was said, oh, this will never be used, like you don't have to have this to identify yourself with things. And now how many times is it, all right, what's your social? What's your social? And it's like, have all been branded with numbers. And it's our own fault. And so we need to start figuring out how it is we can start reversing some of this damage.
And that's how the only way they have, the only legal hook they have to kind of connect you as being a state person. And just so y'all know, the cap I've got on here is a sovereign logo, and it's for all people. I mean, why would you walk around with Adidas or Nike or something on you? What if this was designed to be your logo? That means that basically you rule and govern yourself. And that's what the S for. It stands for two things. It stands for the spirit of the individual, the spirit of the America, and the sovereignty of the individual. And if I had my ruthers, I think we should put the sovereign emblem on every flag to remind all the state legislatures that is the people, not collectively, but individually, who are over the state legislatures. Would you agree?
Yeah, and if we don't start as individuals realizing what rights we have and standing up for them, then we're going to lose even more. Like someone was like, oh, I'm going to stand for my rights, and then when you think about it, it's like, well, do you know your rights? How do you know if you've lost them if you don't know what they are? And how do you know if you're going to lose them if you don't know what they are? So we've got to learn what our rights are, and we have to take any laws that are infringing those rights and start pushing back against them.
And one thing about the sovereignty and the legal definition, the lawful definition of sovereignty is simply this: the decree of the sovereign makes law. So whatever you say, whatever the people say, that's the law. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm often thinking about all these protests, not over when Martin Luther King was here, but also today in America and all across the countries all over the world. Everybody's protesting. Why? They're going to the government to ask the government to do something instead of choosing to self-rule. If they self-ruled, then they would be going to the government and declaring and decreeing to the government, this is what you're going to do. And the only limitation to that decree is you cannot tell the government to take away from someone else to give to another person. Anything that transpires has to be self-will.
Well, but it's not right now. I mean, we raise our children, like say you have two kids. One has a huge ginormous bag of candy and the other one has none or maybe one. And as parents, if that child with one went over and took candy from the child with the lot, we'd be like, that's stealing, that's not okay, don't do that. But now as adults, it's like, oh, well, that person makes more money than you and you don't quite have enough. So it's okay, let's vote and make laws that we take money from those that have and give it to those that don't have. And that's not okay. We as citizens...
But that's the way a democracy works.
And that's not okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because we're a republic and that does not fit the model of a republic.
When somebody gives of their own free will, two things happen. The person receiving is grateful and more keen to step up and rise up so that they don't have to, be in that position again. And then the person that's giving feels good and has, the charity of Christ in them, where if it's forced, one party is resentful because they have to do something that they didn't that infringes their free rights. And then the person that gets it feels entitled to get it because, hey, I'm less than, give it to me. And so many of our children, in my generation included, we feel this entitlement that we are owed something. The only thing we're owed, I don't know, what are we owed?
You're not owed anything.
Nothing. Like, if you want, you get the opportunity to get what you want. Like, this world, you have the opportunity to create what you want. Or you can sit around and cry and be a little victim. I mean, I've been there, I've played victim, and thankfully I had some good friends that were like, hey, snap out of this. If you want something, go get it. And
when you do that, you find a lot more people willing to give to you.
It's true. It's so
because,
true.
I mean, I was in Panama, and the guy's, picking up garbage and all. He's only, everybody else just sitting out there. So I went over and gave him money because he's out there working. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't speak. I just did it because it's the right thing to do.
And the thing is, as Christians, you're commanded to help those that are less fortunate. And when you obey God's commandments, there are blessings. It isn't, though, the government's job to enforce those rules. The government's job is to protect the individual. The end. Now, as a society, if we want to help up, there's things we can do as individuals. Hey, buddy, I'm talking right now. You gotta go to get daddy. But, so as individuals, we can do things to help society. But society and government are two separate things. And it is not, when people are protesting saying, government, give us all health care. No, it's not the government's job. If they do that, you are giving up freedom. And not only that, you're trying to take away other people's freedoms. And it's not okay.
And isn't that kind of what the role of the church is supposed to be in? To help the needy, the people in their community?
Yeah.
You know, that's not up to, they should not be a part of the government. But the only reason the government is involved is because they're, I think, spending and making a lot of money off of it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, just kind of wheeling and dealing.
Well, I mean, if all of a sudden we have nationalized health care, then you have to create government jobs that force all these regulations on people, and all of a sudden you have a new ugly branch of government that is unconstitutional. There's power. The more ways the government can help you, the more freedoms we lose and the more power they have.
And even through the health care, like they said, Obama said, you have no expectation of privacy at all. Anything about your children or you that's medical or anything else ends up belonging to the state. And like the gun registration and other things which people may not know about, a lot of that data has actually been warehoused over in China and other countries. I think Facebook is actually out of, I probably get this wrong, but it seems like they were out of Poland. You know, and so that's where all your data's going. But what it does, puts it outside, because you volunteered for all of this, takes it outside the jurisdiction of the United States, so they are no longer responsible for it, and you gave up your free will to put your kids' pictures all over the internet.
And like I've heard a lot of people say, well, they do a lot of good. And that's true. There have been many unconstitutional government branches that have done a lot of good. But the thing is, if they have the power to do good, then they have the power to do bad. And they shouldn't have the power to be doing either.
Well, hey, I thank you all, and I'm glad y'all made it down. And she's got a fine family. Spent the evening with us. Yeah, they good, they good. And they're having fun out in the park today.
Yeah.
Exercising their natural and unalienable rights. So love to all, and Challice, I hope maybe if you want, we can work together and spread the word a little bit more. Support the sovereignty of the individual, and maybe some of y'all could order some caps if she has a means of doing it with the Sovereign American emblem. We've got shirts and other things.
One thing I'll be posting on his, not this shirt, the other shirt, he has all the laws that guarantee him those rights. And so when he's, pulled over or whatever, he's like, no, here's the law. And, as much as officers want to put up a stink about it, the law is the law. And so I'll try to get more information pushed out to you guys about exactly what laws that he's been teaching me about, so that we can all use them, because, the law is powerful, and if you can actually learn it and get it on your side, it'll be powerful for us.
And the reason I did the t-shirts, it's got the Sovereign American emblem on the front. On the law, I printed out about 10 laws on the back. And the reasoning and logic or insanity about that was, if you wear your shirt into a courtroom and the judge goes blah, 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 whatever, then you can point, and if you can't remember, it's on your shorts, on your shirt, you say, excuse me, Your Honor, which one of these which of these laws can you ignore and deny? So anyway, hey, bless you bunches, love you.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys.
Welcome to Birmingham, Alabama.
Yes, it's a lot warmer than Pennsylvania, so it's been nice. We'll see you guys later.